I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Bianca.
And welcome back to the Pre-Service PODSQUAD podcast.
So today we are in our last series with Hannah. It's okay. No, I'm just kidding, but if anyone else is sniffling out there, that's okay. So we're in our last series today. We're going to be talking to Hannah about the school district and like finding the right fit for you. We're going to be talking about teaching portfolios. For anyone who's joining us for this episode and is new, Hannah Pawlak is an English and special education teacher in Middlesex County, and she's going to be talking to us a little bit about all the work that she has done in interviewing people, and she has a lot of experience working with hiring teams, so we're definitely excited to hear her advice. So let's get started, I think.
Thank you. I mean, this is weird. I feel like I'm part of the crew now, part of the Pod Squad.
We need to definitely do more series with you later. I feel like this has been so helpful.
Sure. It's been fun for me.
Real tears later will be shed. So let's get started with the first question here.
Great.
I think the largest thing is, we're all pre-service educators. We're looking for different capacities to start our careers. Like, how do we figure out which school districts to apply to, which school districts are the right fit for us? Like, how do we get into the space that we've been working so hard to get into?
I know, it's really, it really all comes down to truly, like, once you get in there, you want it to be the right to be the right fit. And I think last time we kind of spoke a little bit about subbing. Yes. Still, even if you don't love the entire experience of it, I do think that is a really, really good way. And to get a feel of the district on paper just doesn't really cut it. But I honestly, even when you're subbing, I still think that when you get a job and let's say you go for the interview, if you like the people who you're interviewing with and if you feel comfortable with them, that is a great sign that you are, that may be a really good school district for you. I mean, there's no promise or guarantee because actually working in a district I think is a little different. But any kind of demo lesson that you do or interaction that you have with the school building itself and the people within, if you're getting a weird feeling or if you're like, oh, I don't know, they said something and you're a little weirded out by it, or something's not aligning with you as you're speaking to the interview team, that's a sign that maybe, not always, but maybe there's something underlying there that may not be for you.
Do you think it would be possible to ask to observe a school prior to applying, or is that not something, it's kind of not standard to do that?
Well, because you would be dealing with the students, and it really depends on the school's, I guess, confidentiality and security systems. A lot of times visitors now, not every district, but I would say a large majority, certain volunteers would have to go through the board minutes. So you would have to be really approved for that. So if you're doing student teaching or a practicum or some sort of internship with a school and you're really liking that school, I think you should, at that time, ask to go see other classes. I don't think you should stick yourself to your cooperating teacher. Really branch out and meet people. That's honestly the best way to do it.
That's a good piece of advice because there might be someone in Clinical 1 or Clinical 2 and they love their school, but they're only spending time with one teacher, and it might not be the best view of the school as a whole and the entire culture and community because they're just in that one room, so that is really good advice. When you're considering all those factors as well, are there any maybe online tools that you can use, maybe provided by NJEA, to try to figure out what school would be the best fit for you?
I think it really depends on what your values are. If you're looking for, it's a job, right? This is your profession. You're going to want to make a salary. If that's something that is a key factor for you, you're looking to hit a certain figure, then yes, NJEA would have resources for that. But there's really honestly nothing like just true experience within the school and within various classrooms. I did have a student teacher, and he stuck with me for a while, as, student teachers do. And he was utterly shocked when he went out into the rest of the school building because, he flew out there to observe other other teachers and other classes, and he was honestly very shocked at the different kind of communities that were built within each of the classes. I won't say which way, but it was very eye-opening for him, just as a general experience. NJEA, besides for the conferences we spoke about last time, and speaking to the actual staff who work there, I can't really think of at this time any other resources, but if I do, I can pass them along to you guys and you could plop them out on your newsletters or something.
I remember at convention they had almost like, I want to say like a board where you could pull different districts and like different statistics about the districts, which was helpful, and I picked up a few of those pamphlets, but definitely a good way to get some more information at NJEA convention too.
You know what you could do, and this you wouldn't need any kind of approval for, but you could just as a general participant go to a board meeting. Like it's an open meeting, it's an open forum, and you could get a sense of what the board's like, you're not gonna be able to give public comment, really, I wouldn't do that, but I would go and sit there and just listen. You may be the only one in the audience, or you may not. So that just may be just something to do and see what that district's actually focused on. And you could always find the board minutes and where they're meeting and what time online for most of the districts, and you can kind of see what they're going to be talking about. So if they have a budget meeting, what are they putting their money to? So that'll show you where their values really lie.
That's actually super helpful. And at some of my Board of Education meetings, a lot of times students were recognized there for different awards or achievements.
Yes, it's cute.
So you get to see the students, get to see their families, what are they recognizing in the school, what are they deeming to be important. So I think that's really cool too. You do get a little bit of a look into the student body as well.
Yeah, and that's really great. And they're always so happy.
Yeah.
It's such like a nice moment.
Yeah.
So it's really nice.
Can we also talk a little bit about now the application to the school? So I remember last episode you were talking to us a little bit about how there is the Applitrack, I believe, or what is it called? Applitrack. So I'm assuming most school districts use that sort of system?
I'd be shocked if most really at this point in time didn't convert to it.
So how do you use that system to apply to different schools? Like, can you just tell us a little bit more about what the application process might look like?
Basically, you would go online. You could literally Google it.
Okay.
And I do believe it's Applitrack. When you go online, you fill out this basic general application. It does have you upload a resume, from what I remember, your recommendation letters, your basic information, and some very standard questions, which I think we talked about putting those on a document. Still put those on a document. You never know what's going to delete. You just never know. And then it just saves, and you go to the different school districts. It has a search bar. You search them up, the ones that you want, and you could just apply. Really nice and easy.
Where do you add, a lot of my professors talk about this teaching portfolio, and I hear that word thrown around a lot. Where does this teaching portfolio go? Where is it sent to? What actually is it? How will employers see your teaching portfolio, I guess is the question here.
So portfolios are really, really interesting. I think they could be incredibly useful and worthwhile. So during the interview, when you're talking and you have a portfolio, if you're bringing a physical copy of just professional development certificates or things you made, things you crafted, that is something you would want to use during the interview. Some people will ask about it and some won't. So you could just have that book kind of lying there. I do think at this point we're seeing a lot of online portfolios via LinkedIn. I think that's a really good way to bring some people have them post on business cards, which is really great. Some people even have it out on their resume, the LinkedIn link. It makes it really convenient to go on and and look at it. And what's great about that whole thing, to be honest, is sometimes if you do pay for the pro version, you can kind of see who's maybe the school district looked at you. But at the same time, if it is online, you still want to be like, in my portfolio, which is linked there, you will see. So definitely suggest. I like the business card.
Okay.
So what I love to see from a lot of the candidates that come in is sometimes people will bring these mini portfolios. So it's kind of more of a snapshot of their online presence, I would say. You'd want to kind of have a feel. I say bring no less than 10, because if you do have a full committee, you don't know when you're going into an interview exactly what you're going to be showing. So if you have a portfolio, it would be in a folder. So you know how you have like a regular folder. Sometimes on one of the pockets, there's like a place to put almost a business card where you could slip it in.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you would put it. And inside the folder, you would have your resume, printed out copy on the nice resume paper. I know it doesn't, it means something, trust me. You want to like print out your letters of recommendation. Those are really awesome. I also have seen, I know when I applied, I did a long and short form lesson plan, just little things that you would want them to have, just as some consideration going forward.
And you would have a copy for each committee member, or it was just one? Okay.
Yes, and one for yourself. And on that little business card, you can link your LinkedIn and QR code it. Now that we have people, it's become popular, so it's nice and easy. After you leave, everyone could just scan it.
So for the actual portfolio, do you think it's better to just link it on LinkedIn, or should you have a physical paper copy?
Like a full binder kind of thing? Honestly, I think it's cumbersome and unnecessary. And then as you update it, some things become more and more relevant. So when I applied, I had a big old binder. Granted, LinkedIn wasn't as popular. It was there, it existed. But when we were taught in school, we were taught just, you bring a portfolio, you bring a binder, fill it with your stuff, and make yourself look good. There's one copy of that, right? So I didn't leave it with them. I just take it away. And all they saw of it was what I showed them. And then some of the things I had from my freshman year, all those PD certificates, how relevant really were they at that point? Not saying that they shouldn't be in there, but when you link certain things in an online portfolio, I just think it makes it look much neater and less chunky.
That makes sense. So just to make it more accessible to whoever's looking at it, and then that's a really good point. You take it away from them if it's a big binder that you're taking around to other interviews as well, but you leave it with them if it's like a QR code they can scan, so.
Absolutely.
In addition to your resume, your letters of recommendation, what else might you, or PD you said, and if you have PD certifications, what else might you put in your teaching portfolio?
The online one?
Yes, and the online version. Either, I'm assuming you could use LinkedIn or like Linktree, right? Maybe?
You could use Linktree. Why I do suggest LinkedIn is just because it's easy for people to navigate.
Okay.
Most of the administration, at least, and that is who is hiring you. Everybody, we get an input as educators, but the ultimate decision is up to the admin, then the board. So I definitely think an overarching who you are, but remember, if it's just paragraphs of information, people aren't reading that. I do not think so. And let's say they are. I mean, the more you say, the more it could rub people the wrong way. So nice and tight and short. Definitely put all of your internships, your experiences on there, practicums, maybe even you can expand your resume here. So if you couldn't fit it on that one page double-sided thing, put it on the portfolio and have the different tabs on the website or whatever you're using, I guess, kind of just replicate that, if you will. You could put your professional development on there. LinkedIn, I know that you can get, people could vouch for your accomplishments, essentially.
Oh, like a testimonial, you mean?
Almost. Someone could be like, I know Bianca is really great at Google Suite. And they give you a stamp of approval, and that's something.
That's
yeah,
fun.
it's really cool. Yeah, it's actually like really awesome, especially if you wanted to start making this. The earlier, the better, and you could start asking your practicum and internship, I guess, mentors to do that for you if it's something that you're really interested in.
I didn't see LinkedIn as such a priority. I feel like it's been an undervalued resource in my life. I have to go back and reassess.
So cool. The things you can do on LinkedIn, it's like a non-cringy Facebook, right? It's only cringy if you make it cringy. So yes, you can post status updates. So just keep in mind, as you post these status updates, they're professional status updates where you are talking about professional related things with good, proper grammar, capitalization, and no texting acronyms. That's just my one thing with that. We've seen some very interesting things, which is fine, but it's a professional forum and you should really honestly treat it as such.
Yeah, I would say the big theme throughout all the episodes has been keep it as professional as possible. Whether that's in the interview, maybe you're doing mock lessons with different classes or on LinkedIn, you should always just be presenting yourself in the best possible way. And there's little fixes that you can do to help yourself out, and something like that, using acronyms like you're texting, that's only hurting yourself, so.
It really is. It just makes it almost cheapens the look. You are the prize in this situation, and you want people to everybody wants to hire you. That's what you want. Someone looks at it, say it's good. It's a great opportunity to get maybe some sort of really nice headshot. Not saying you have to pay for it, but take your friends out and get in good lighting and take a nice professional headshot. So stuff like that.
If you are at a school and let's say you've now been hired and you're in that position where you're excited, you're a first year teacher, let's say you do, this is going to be a whole scenario for you. Let's say you do.
Picture.
I will try. Let's say you're a first year teacher, you kind of going through your first year and you're realizing that the school community is not maybe the perfect fit for you, and you're realizing that maybe this wasn't what you thought it was when you first came into the job position. So what would you advise someone to do in that position? How easy is it to switch to a different school district? Do you think that's the right move? Maybe do you think they should try another year? Or how do you navigate that kind of problem, or maybe just situation, scenario in general?
Okay, so I want to preface by saying this is very much easier said than done. All right. Okay. So I look at your relationship with your school district is exactly that. It's a relationship. It can be great. It could be status quo. It could be toxic. If you are feeling like it is not a good match for you, and it is more often than not that this happens, not people go into a district and, a ton of people are hating the district that they choose. That's not what I'm saying. I feel like there's some shame associated with you got your first job, we've been doing a whole series on this. It's so hard to get your first job and you did it and you're so happy. And then it's kind of awkward because you hate it, or maybe you're just not being renewed. That's another thing. There's a lot of shame around that, and there really shouldn't be, right? So if you're not feeling like this is a district for you, just like if you're with a person and you're not feeling like that's right for you, get out. No one put a ring on it. Right? You didn't? Sometimes they do. And let's say you're tenured and let's say that's your ring and you have to leave, right? If you are good at what you do and you're confident at what you do, you want to go to work and you want to be happy. You're going to have fantastic days. You're going to have really, really, really hard days. And that's in any district. I do think it's very common for first year educators to romanticize. I did it, right? I was like, oh, gosh, I love this, and all my children will love me, and all my colleagues will love me, we'll be best friends. And sometimes it happens. You're going to have years where that's great. Sometimes you're going to have years where it's a little bit rocky. But if you're something's inside of you and your intuition's telling you it's not right, there are so many other school districts that would embrace you. And yeah, it's gonna be work to apply to them. You're gonna have to interview, you may have to demo lesson, you may have to put your, demo lesson portfolio together, and you may have to do all of that again. But that's why you save your answers on Applitrack, on that document, even if it's 3-4 years down the line and your Applitrack is erased, because I think they do that after a certain period of time. They're saved. You can update them. There's no shame around it's not even a starting over. It's just a next part of your career. Just instead of looking at it like, oh, I got to start over, I have to be non-tenured again, or I have to do my first year again. And it is hard to restart. And I'm not going to take those feelings away from people. But sometimes a restart isn't always a bad thing. Yeah.
And say you're in that scenario, you really do want to move.
Yeah.
What does that process look like? Who do you go to talk to? Is there a lot of paperwork involved? How long would that take?
So when you get hired, oftentimes when you're, at least I'm going to speak from a teacher, perspective, you get a mentor teacher your first year. It is so important if you can, and sometimes you can't, and that's okay, to build a good relationship with that person so you can talk to them and be like, hey, I don't know if this is working out. Sometimes give it another year, sometimes don't. Sometimes people give it another year and they're like, oh, it was just my first year. First years are hard. We all have to recognize that. But talk to that person. You can talk to a trusted rep. Talk to a friend. If you're, living with somebody, I don't know who that is, parents, grandparents, sisters, partners, and you're coming home miserable every single day, that's not it, right? It's, as you're talking to, if you almost want to role reverse. So let's say you lived with your sister and you were coming home and you're talking about your sister and your sister's listening to you and she'll give you some advice. But if she were telling you what you're telling her, what would you tell her, right? Would you tell her to stay in that, employee district relationship, or would you tell her maybe it's time to look elsewhere? And sometimes your second time isn't going to hit it either. Sometimes your third time isn't. People have various avenues of district. Sometimes it's just, if you thought you wanted a big district and then it was almost too big, maybe try something smaller, maybe mid-size. But I think it is important to do some internal, digging and feel like, what here isn't working for me? And now, based on that, why is that not working?
Like, what do I want? Like, this is what I have now. This isn't working for me. But what am I actually looking for? Like you said, try to sit down with yourself and figure out what you're having a problem with. And
that's a really good way to think about it. I like that a lot. Just kind of pulling yourself out of the situation, because I feel like people can get so trapped in the moment and they might want to try to convince themselves into thinking that it's working, because they might not feel like going through the process of moving. But if you sort of remove yourself from the situation and flip it around, like, what would I say to someone else who's going through the same thing? Then you might come to terms with it and realize, oh, I might need to make a change. So.
Yeah. Sometimes it gets better.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't.
Change is, I feel like any kind of change is difficult, but I think that if you reflect on your situation and you kind of take time to think about it, it's like you can make a better decision of whether to stay or whether to go, what decision to make. Because
if you are, though, like on your third district and something still isn't clicking, I would even say the earlier the better here. When you're figuring out like what's not working and why it's not working, think about almost you're not putting it, the onus is never just on you, right? But when you're in like a relationship, there's two things going into that. Maybe you need just stricter boundaries for yourself, right? And you're just spending your whole weekend working, and maybe you're looking at this and you have a perfectionist thing going on and all your worksheets have to be like, so really think about that, because that's not going to change per district. So as you're looking at it, you're like, wow, they're taking up so much time. Why is it? And you're like, wow, well, the district's giving me all this. Also think, what is my role in that? And is there something I could do to change it to make it better for myself? Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. But it doesn't hurt to put in those, little procedures, I guess.
It can be hard to be honest with yourself, though.
It's so hard.
So you have to always try to take the situation and like be real about it and just figure out where to go next.
It's not easy, and every situation's so different. Everyone has their own things going on. Yeah. Just in life too, so.
True. It's situational,
It's situational.
Can we also shift gears a little bit?
Yeah.
So let's say you are happy at the school, you were trying to
manifest it for everyone. It's so good.
New scenario for you. What do you do when you're sitting down and you're ready to sign on to a school and you're convinced that this is the right fit for you? How can you negotiate within your contract? Like, I know a lot of teachers will say, like, as a first year teacher, that's really the only chance you'll get to negotiate your salary, so make sure to do it then. But I guess two-parter question here is, one, how do you negotiate your salary? And number two, what else can you negotiate in your contract without upsetting your administration too, that you're trying to kind of push their boundaries?
So it's really because collective bargaining, we are very lucky to be in a very strong state that does, support that. It's not really when you're a first year teacher or employee necessarily, it's you entering a new district. So let's say it's your third year and you're entering a new district, then you have some negotiation wiggle room. And they do talk about it a lot with salary, because let's say you're a third year teacher, and that means on a salary guide, you're on step 3, for example. When you go to a new school district, they can easily, if they wanted to, start you at a step 1, which is already negotiated, right? But you may want to say, you know what? I personally was making a step 3 at my last district, and this will be my 4th year. So I should really be on your step 4 because I have 4 years of experience, for example. It's really important to look at the contract and know exactly what's in there. A lot of districts don't have the same negotiated, not only value, but even how the steps work. So that's a whole nother thing, but we could even talk just more basically. You have a bachelor's, they may have a master's. Some districts have a master's plus 15, some have a master's plus 30, some have a doctoral step, and then others don't. Some have a bachelor's plus 15. It really just depends on what the negotiation team came to a consensus about. So that's when they talk about negotiating. When you first enter the district, it's really important. You're going to have a little, not saying you couldn't do it, there is no harm in asking. But when you enter as a first year without beefing up your experience, they may look at you and be like, well, we could have gotten that other candidate step 1 with the same experience as you. But if you could pedestal your experience and why they need you specifically, and you're coming in as a first year, there's no reason why you couldn't try. And there's no reason, if you were like, you switched districts and now you should be on a step 2, why you couldn't try to negotiate a step 5. You could, you just can't, guarantee that they're gonna be like, yep. You do whatever you say.
Well, that's why it's a negotiation too, right?
Yes, that's a negotiation within the bounds. They're not going to start you at like a step 1.5. You have to abide. You're going to be working within the contract, so you're going to have to abide by the contract. But your salary has a little more. Especially when you're coming in with the needs that the state has right now. I mean, shoot your shot, but back it up.
100K.
Right? As long as it's on the salary guide.
100? Okay, wait, I'll give you 65. Okay, let's meet in the middle for 90.
Maybe start out with like 500 and then they'll come down to 100. That's how.
Oh, yeah, that's some negotiation tactics. I mean, not saying our job isn't worth it. So
True. It's more than worth it.
More than worth it. If you have more than one job offer, you could look them in the eyes and be like, am I worth it to you?
You could do that.
Don't advise, but
That's playing with fire a little bit.
I would say the big thing there is just advocating for yourself. And as you're going through interviews, you may be with a bunch of districts. And so like you were saying, maybe take a few offers from a few districts and say, well, this one's a little bit better than this one, but I like this district better. How can I negotiate with them to try to raise it to maybe the same price that another district is offering me, but still be able to be exactly where I want? So just knowing what you want and being willing to advocate for yourself is definitely very important.
Oh yeah, if you got more than one offer and one district is starting you on step 2, try to get the one that you really want on that step. Or if you don't devalue your experience, so if you spent a year doing long-term subbing and you want to try to be like, hey, I did this year, and let's say you're going for the same district, I really think I should be a step 2, you can try to negotiate that. Once you're hired in that district, that is the only time you could have negotiated that from yourself, and it is what it is. They're not going to raise you like randomly within your employment. But yeah, don't devalue what you have. Definitely put it out there.
Okay. Speaking to that though, like if you have certain experiences and like different extracurricular activities or hobbies, how could you get involved with like different opportunities in the school? Like, I know some teachers will be coaches after school. Or
Yes.
I think you're a coach too, right, for track or?
I advise like a business club called DECA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, which I love doing, but it is an application process in my district. They put it out. Internal applicants always get first dibs, and they interview us. If for some reason there's no internal applicant, then they put it out there. But that doesn't mean there aren't things that, were not filled or don't open randomly throughout the year for various reasons. You can even volunteer. Again, that has to, at least in our district, it goes through a board approval process, but nobody's gonna say, no, don't volunteer coaching the soccer team. It does protect you in its own way. Heaven forbid, working in a public service, something does happen or you are accused of something wrongly, whatever it is, it was board approved and you're kind of check the boxes there.
And so would you recommend trying to find out about those opportunities in your first few years, or is it better to kind of get your foot in the door and then look into those opportunities?
No, do it. I would even say put it out there in the interview when be like, I'm really great at tennis. I would love an opportunity to coach whatever tennis team. Don't know if you have any. School districts sometimes really need people to volunteer because it's tiring. So it's not really like, even if it's not a volunteer thing, even if they're hiring you for that coaching or Schedule B position, it's really, really important that they know you're interested and things open. Like credit recovery will open, maybe after school tutoring will open, and it's a great way to have a little side hustle just within your district.
That's something that you're passionate about. Like it could be a good way for kids to see you outside of the classroom than just teaching.
Yes, and start something, and don't be afraid to start something, and then maybe the following year it's successful and it becomes an official position. Those are ways to get ingrained into your district that it actually may make you want to stay more, even if you were having some, I don't know. That's a great piece of ownership.
Talk about change, that would be making the change, so that's pretty cool. Change makers. But as we start to wrap up this, last episode in our series, could you tell us a little bit more about the Early Career Network at NJEA, and especially for educators who are starting off their careers about like going on to 5 years and are in that beginning phase, what is the Early Career Network and how can you get involved if you're a pre-service member?
Great, so the NJEA Early Career Network is essentially a social support group for professionals within their first 5 years of the profession. So that does include they call it year 0, which is NJEA Preservice. No, I get it, like you have no
years.
Normally, yeah, traditionally, no. So it's really great for people who are non-tenured because the events that are hosted by the Early Career Network are hosted and planned by early career members. And so it's what is valuable to them at the time, what's great about going as a pre-service member is you really not only create a great network of connections, the events are free, they're regionalized. So let's say they're in like Mercer County, there are some in Mercer County, and not only that, but you know kind of what's going on in the profession from people who are just starting out. Not exclusively. Sometimes they'll bring their mentor teacher, or they'll bring people who are above 5 years in the profession. But I mean, that adds value as well. It's a regionalized network. So you'll have the 4 regions of NJEA. So there's Northwest, Northeast, Central, and South. And I know NJEA breaks up the counties as they do into those regions. It actually runs through Uniserve right now.
Okay.
It's a great way to just transition from pre-service to your full-time career. I suggest it. I would look on Instagram, and you can always reach out to the pre-service email and just ask for the staff contact to each of those regions if you're interested.
And so you said they'll host events. Are those events usually online webinars, or are they in-person events? What does that kind of look like?
So it used to be kind of a mix of both, especially with COVID. Trying to organize that was interesting. But now they're very much in person, and what's great about that is that's where the connections happen. Online, I think, as convenient as it is, there is something missing, and it's not really a great way to build a foundational support system in the sense that it's trying to, the Early Career Network is trying to do. And so they're in person, go to them, travel to them. It's okay to just show up. They do check your membership. I do suggest registering ahead of time, but they're great. It's like, there's one I know that's really popular. It's pizzas and paychecks. They always do it at the beginning of the year. Yeah, who doesn't like pizza and who doesn't like paychecks? I mean,
sounds good.
2 really great things. And what's so great about that is it'll break down as you guys eat pizza, it'll break down the acronyms of what is found on a traditional paycheck. And you can ask questions about, let's say, things you don't always think about, like retirement funds, or these weird letters that aren't really words, and there's some sort of tax, and you're like, what is that? And people bring their paychecks, so you can really see if people are comfortable. But a lot of times they are. Nobody's hiding it. What, the different paychecks look like from the different districts and the different things that come out and go into them.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It is fun.
Money and food. What else could people be interested in?
There's usually knowledge in food. It's really,
Yeah.
really purposeful. It's really awesome.
I think this brings back the point that the more you're willing to get involved and like you said, increase your knowledge base, the more it's gonna benefit from you. So it's like all the teachers say, like, the effort that you put in is like what you get out of it. So I think being involved and finding opportunities within the union is a good way to get more knowledge and get better understanding of what's going on in the field.
Yeah, it also makes things just less awkward. So let's say you're wanting to go to a conference or something that NJEA has, just if you have a network that you can pull from, then go with people, or maybe they're already going. It's just makes it a lot more social and communal. The union is so many things. I know people really just have this these blinders of job protection, that's what it is, but it's yes and, right? And that's kind of what the Early Career Network focuses on, is the and I think more people can.
We're a family here.
No, it is.
Really though. I feel like every conference that I've attended, it's always been people are very welcoming, they're very interested in talking to you, and
Yes.
it feels like a family, really, though.
Good.
Yeah.
Then I'm glad you're enjoying it. I like it too. I really like it.
Well, I suppose we're biased too, but it's okay.
No.
Of course not. Oh, my stomach. But thank you so much for joining us, Hannah.
Of course.
We are sad that this has to be the last episode, but there's clearly so many more topics to talk about.
I
Yeah.
love this little seat between you guys. Just feels so natural.
Well,
But thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone for joining us. We appreciate you listening. And if you listened to all the episodes with Hannah, that's amazing. I'm sure you're much more prepared now than you were before. So thank you for tuning in for all those. Definitely look out for more of these longer length Thursday episodes and also our shorter Motivational Monday episodes.
That's right. We will be bringing all the good vibes to you on Monday mornings. But thank you again, Hannah, for giving us all that advice. And we are excited for the more episodes and more guests that we have coming on to speak to us during the podcast. So definitely look out for our later episodes and have a happy Thursday, everybody.